Once the National Legion of Decency proved to Hollywood filmmakers it could impact them where it really hurt by cutting profits at the box office, the leaders of the organization were given an influential role in content development.
There was cooperation between the National Legion of Decency and certain important figures within Hollywood who saw that censorship by the government or boycotts were going to be bad for the industry.
No exhibitor would want to release a C-rated movie. Breen would get the script and then look at it and say, these lines are sex suggestive. That was one of his famous phrases.
It was really about sexuality, but negotiating with the industry, they needed something that was very yes or no. If there was no nudity, then the sexuality wasn't such a big deal. If the sexuality wasn't a big deal, but there was a moment of nudity, it suddenly became a big deal.
Anytime you got nothing to do and lots of time to do it, why, come on.
They claimed that the Legion was established because moviegoers were very offended by Mae West's, which I don't really believe. I mean, Mae West was suggestive, but risque, you might say. She was never dirty or anything like that. But it is true, if you look at the pre-code movies, first of all, the cleavage was rather obvious. The loose living was rather obvious. They showed the seamy side of life, but I mean, nobody had to pay for what they did.
I remember Pat Sullivan reporting back to us reviewers with some satisfaction that he had met with the producers of Bonnie and Clyde and given them the ultimatum. There was a scene at the top of the stairs, Bonnie at the top of the stairs, and you could very briefly see her bare breast. And he gave them an ultimatum that we were going to have to condemn this movie. So they clipped 10 seconds from the movie, and now they could give it an A4. Then the issue, of course, was violence. Was violence too much? But violence didn't have the same negative reaction from reviewers and consultants that sex did. Besides being in a negotiating position with the studios, the Catholic office was kind of beginning, in some sense, to educate the public. Now, the process they used for doing the ratings was important. They would have a half a dozen reviewers, and they would have another 20 or 30 consultants. And the way it worked was the studio, a few weeks before the movie's release, would have critic screenings, and they would have special critic screenings for the Catholic office in a preview theater. We would all go to the preview movie, then the consultants would go back to Brooklyn or Queens or wherever they lived, and New Jersey, and they would send in their comments and reviews.
Often with the screening, we'd come right back and sit down and talk about it before we even got the consultants' reports in.
None of us knew what the rating was going to be. I think Henry Herx put everything together, and then on the basis of that, the rating was assigned.
The Legion couldn't impose the pain of sin on you for seeing a condemned film. You might have a legitimate reason for seeing a condemned film. For instance, a Catholic film reviewer is assigned to review for a secular paper. But what the perception generally was to go to a condemned film, even if it wasn't a sin, was at least an occasion of sin, because you had been advised that this was a spiritually dangerous film. And so you were placing yourself in the position of being exposed to an occasion of sin. And that's sort of where the outlook lay right up until the 1950s and 60s.